Hello everyone, nice to see you. Welcome to the live stream. So, as usual, or maybe not as usual, but anyway, I'm Remy Monsen, and today I'm going to have a little fun with Campaign Cartographer and take you a little bit into gardening. Of course, I don't know why I picked this topic. I mean, if any of you had looked at my actual garden, they would have clearly identified that me and gardening do not compute. Anyway, maybe some gardening on a computer is better. So, for just a few days ago, Sue released some free symbols. Now some nice hedges, which can be used for making things like hedge mazes and, well, just general hedges. I guess not everyone with a hedge has a hedge maze. So I was just thinking that I'm going to start out giving you a little bit of a hedge maze, showing you a little bit on how to use these symbols, how to install these symbols, and talk a little bit about them in general, and perhaps a little bit more about gardening and playing a little around with Campaign Cartographer. So let's just jump into it. First of all, I need the symbols. Well, actually, we can wait a little bit with the symbols. I'm going to start with a map, and I'm gonna make a new dungeon map, and I'm just going to stick with the classic Dungeon Designer 3 style. This can be done in all styles, of course, but Sue's symbols work fine with this style. So I'm just gonna grab that one, and I'm going to make a smallish map, one that is 100 by 100 feet. I'm gonna put some grass in the background. And sorry now, Wyvern, it's the same mouse highlighter as I've been using for a long while. Let's see, grass green 1. That sounds like a nice enough grass. Let us mess a little bit with it later. And let's put it somewhere nice. Okay, there we go. I have my garden map. Yeah, I actually just enabled an option there. We want to add the circle. That was an option in the software I'm using just to go with the click circles. But I did use it. I have used it at least 1 or 2 times before, so it's not the first stream. Okay, now how do I draw my hedges? I could, of course, go and grab myself some vegetation, some bushes. I mean, can make a nice little hedge from the bushes, can't I? Well, let's stop messing around and go get Sue's symbols. So I'm going to go to the web and hit the Pro Fantasy forums, and there should be a topic right there, or instead of searching for the topic, I guess I should show you the proper way of finding these things. So when you visit the forum, look here at the left side, and you'll find something called Helpful Resources and FAQ. Inside of here, you'll find a lot of useful resources. And here we have the free assets by Sue Danielle. Here are the tentacles I used earlier. And here we have the nice connecting hedges. There's even a larger example image in her thread here. I'm not going to do a large maze like this, then I could spend the entire live stream just making a maze. But what I want is this zip file. So I'm gonna download this one and I'm gonna open the file. What you see when you open the file, and this goes for all the files in this Sue topic because she is packing all our symbols the same way. So when I open it, you should see at least one folder, but probably several folders. And the point here is that these folders are just to be extracted right into your Campaign Cartographer data directory. So let's just find that one. I'm gonna put this one to the side. And I'm gonna start a new Windows Explorer. And by default, the Campaign Cartographer data directory should be, you could choose where you want to put it during installation, but if you did use the default option, it's in your C drive, System C, Program Data. Notice that Program Data is a hidden folder, so do not confuse it with Program Files if you don't see Program Data. If it's hidden, let's just turn off View of Hidden Data. You can see it's hidden, I can't see it, so don't confuse it with Program Files. It's not the same thing. Turn back on Hidden Items, Program Data, Pro Fantasy, and CC3+. And I can just grab these and drag them over. Just make sure when you drag them that you don't accidentally drag them into another folder or something like that. It's easy doing some small silly mistakes. So the default path to the Campaign Cartographer data directory is C Program Data Pro Fantasy CC3+. But for an easy way of finding it, if you don't know where it is, maybe you have a custom location, or maybe you don't want to deal with the hidden directory and things like that, let's just close this. Let's go back to Campaign Cartographer. And I'm now going to start typing on the command line. I'm going to type OpenDoc. And my mouse pointer is hiding it, but OpenDoc. Hit space or enter, doesn't matter. And I'm going to type the single @ sign. Just the @ sign. And hit enter, and voila, the data directory pops up, ready to go without having to look for it. So that's a quick way of getting to the data directory. But now I have already copied the files. So they are ready, and they are right here on the connecting hedges. So notice I didn't need to restart Campaign Cartographer or anything. I can just install symbols and things like that, even if it's running, doesn't really matter. But as I said, they are here on the wall catalog, ED3 color walls connecting hedges. Or if you're not working in Dungeon Designer at the time, you can just go to Open Symbol Catalog, and you'll find them in the Symbols folder, Program Data Pro Fantasy CC3+ Symbols, User, Sue, Dungeon, Connecting Hedges. If you want to open it, for example, if you work in another style, like one of Sue's other styles, Creepy Crypt or Forest Trail or whatever. So now these symbols come in two variants. The top ones here are the Imperial ones. These are designed for use in Imperial maps, which are in feet and inches. The bottom two here are for use in metric maps, which used, of course, meters. The reason for this is that these are what we call connecting symbols, and the scaling for them works a bit special. So these are pre-scaled and ready for use in the different type of maps. So I can just expand it as well and see the different hedge segments. But if I close it back up and click, you'll notice when I start drawing, if I click somewhere, you'll see it just gives me some outline, and I can actually just draw this outline like this. And we get a nice row of symbols. These symbols are what we call connecting symbols, which means that there are a set of symbols which are designed for Campaign Cartographer to automatically be able to place in a long row. So you just define how does the row look, or the line look, and it just will place the symbols along the line. And what's more, you can see that these have different lengths. Some of them are 10 foot, 5 foot, 2 foot, and 1 foot. And Campaign Cartographer will actually pick the right ones to put into this part based on the actual length of the part. And if there are multiple ones, just look here at the 5 foot ones. There are some with some flowery stuff and some white flowery stuff. And if I zoom in really anywhere, we can see that some of the sections, like this one, is rather plain, but up here is flowers. There's a plain section, more flowers. So it picks randomly from the different sections when it has more than one to choose from. This allows us to easily draw lines of symbols like this. And this is what I'm going to use for my hedge maze. Now, for my hedge maze, I needed to prepare a maze up front, so I had something that looked a little bit coherent. I could just start drawing hedges, but I don't think that would be very nice. But let's just import my predefined maze. I'm gonna make a sheet for it. So maze image, and put it above floors, and yeah, and I'm going to go to draw, insert file, and I'm gonna pick up my existing maze file. So then open this one. And the first question you get when you insert files, images, is how should it store the part? The best way, usually when you have files that are intended to use with a map, is to make sure the file, the image file, is in the exact same folder as the map itself. And then you use store the file's relative path to the current drawing. Because that means that if you move the files at a later stage, as long as you move both the map file and the image file, everything will work all the time. If you use an absolute path, then you kind of stick the path to the image file in there right like it's now, and you can never move the image file. If you do, you get red X in Campaign Cartographer, and you have to go in and edit and move the path yourself. So it's always best to have a path that's relative to the current drawing. But for this option to be available in the first place, the image file needs to be in the same folder as the map, or in a sub-folder below the map. So prepare these things up front. If I just picked something from my download directory or something like that, I would only have been able to use the absolute path, and I would have been stuck with an image file in my download directory, which I don't want to. So place the files first, then insert them. Okay. I'm gonna start inserting it at the bottom at 0.0, and I have the end at 100. You might remember I made the map 100 by 100. So there we go. I have inserted the file. So yes, Versus, I did see your questions in chat about using connecting symbols to make stone carvings. I think we should take that into the forum. It's kind of a bit more difficult than I can answer quickly right here in the live stream. So yes, so this is the part I want to make, and let's see, I think I'm actually going to move this. It's below the symbols, fine. I can now start just placing these edges. And now, note one thing, none of these hedges are actually round. If you look at them, they're all quite just long straight lines. But there are a lot of short segments, and if you want to make a round shape from straight things, you can usually do it as long as the segments are short enough. It still looks good enough. So I'm gonna pick the hedge, just checking that the symbol scale is 1 as it's supposed to be. And I can start with my circle, and to make them short enough, I need to click a little bit. And the more precise I am with my clicking and looking at this, the better this will look in the end. Also notice that I've turned off snap when I'm doing this, because if snap is on, the symbols will snap to the grid, which is definitely not what you want when you are dealing with a circle. You can see I'm clicking not always perfectly here. I'm not going to bother too much if it's not turning out perfect. I'll just live with that. I'm just going to go blame the gardener who didn't do a good enough job of rounding the edges of my hedge. The gardener is me, of course, so I can blame myself in the mirror after the session. That works fine. And right click to finish. And as you can see, even if I just dealt with straight segments, it doesn't look too bad. Should we zoom into one of these a little bit? See here? Yeah, it has a kind of roundish shape. Here I even did a little misclick, which is why it's sticking out here a little bit. Could fix that, but I'm not. So let's continue on. I have a little bit more to cover. Well, actually, before I cover the internals of the maze, I'm gonna do one thing. I'm going to create another sheet, I think. Call it Central Hub. And here I am going to, I can activate sheet effects while I'm here to get shadows. And I'm gonna pick another fill. Some gray, some herringbones are nice. And I'm gonna draw a circle, and I'm going to try to get this circle as close to the center as possible. Now, if this maze thingy was a camping cartograph, a normal entity and not an image, I would just have used the center modifier like this, what I have here, but that doesn't work very well with the image. So I'm just gonna try to find it. Actually, I zoom in a little bit, so I'm working a little bit easier. Try to find a nice little midpoint there. And You can see it's almost at the midpoint, and I'm just going to move it just a little bit. Ever so slightly. Yeah, I think that's good enough for my purposes. So this is just because I want a central hub here. And now we can move the central hub down, so up, so it's below the image. I'm gonna hide the image when I'm done, of course, but now I have a little central section right here. Okay, then I'm just going to do a little bit of work because I'm gonna have to draw all of these. And to not bore you all too much, I'm not going to be too critical of my placements here. I'm just gonna do this rather quickly. Of course, if you want this to look at the best, you should take your time. It doesn't take that much time to make these quite nice, but it takes a little bit more time than I guess most of you have the patience just looking at me placing connecting symbols. It gets old after a while. So we are just pretending that I'm doing a stellar job and always clicking exactly where I mean to click. And that this is going to turn out absolutely perfect. I'm going to avoid the central area for a little bit. Let's see that one, and I'm actually going to start here. So the Trevian, which tool I'm using to do this? These are connecting symbols. They are made by Sue. The download link should be in the very first post in the YouTube chat. I'm not sure. I think I forgot. I don't remember if I linked them from the YouTube description as well. Maybe, maybe not. But you'll find them in the chats. There's a download link that goes to the forum, and they are very nice to make these quick hedges. Again, doing this a little bit fast. We're getting somewhere. And these looks quite nice when they just overlap. So just splash them on top of each other. It usually works out most of the time. Probably going to be some narrow sections there because I'm not too careful. Yeah, that was all the outer sections, including the section that fits up with the outer walls on the central section. Okay, this one, getting some shadows on them. And let's just tidy up a little bit, just show you how to go in. For example, right here, I want a nice corner here, and maybe I'm gonna hide this a little bit. So let me just grab this nice circular edge and just slap them down a couple of places. Works wonders. Just find all the places we are not quite happy with, either the end like that, or places where it seems to overlap. Funny, it generally looks quite a bit better. Some of these overlaps can also be hidden by other symbols. Of course, I haven't gotten into other symbols yet, but I can add more things like trees and all things of that as well. But this works out quite nicely. Okay, now I'm going to just draw the inner sections of the maze. To get a little bit more perfect for these. Go. And there we go. And I think I want a hedge symbol on the end right here. And right there. Okay, there we go. I have the basic of my hedge maze. Let me hide this image now. And there we go. Surely, as I mentioned earlier, I could have made it a bit more pretty if I had been a bit more careful, not having this weird bump here, but for just half an hour's work, it's fine, I guess. So, let's look a little bit about the gardening aspect of this before we move on with the fun parts. Now, first of all, let us look at this grass around here. It's a bit repetitive, isn't it? Looks a little bit weird. Well, one of the ways we can change the repetitiveness of it is to just change the scale of the fill. It was the grass green 1 I used. Let's try changing the scale to 25. You can't put this scale too high because then it gets pixelated. But you can certainly bump it a little bit. And there we go. It looks far less repetitive at once. And we also have a visitor who wants to inspect our mazes. So I guess he has the right to do so. It's the furry maze inspector. And he loves standing in front of my screen. I just hope he doesn't hit any of the buttons for the stream control. He likes to hit those buttons. If the view suddenly changes, you know why. Okay, so maybe the coloring of the grass isn't perfect either. And when we come to the coloring aspects of things, Sue is so much better than me at this. But I can at least show you how to do it. And the grass is at the background sheet. Let's try adding an adjust hue saturation effect on that one. Actually, I'm going to move this a little bit out of the way so we can see the preview. And yeah. Let's try make the grass a little bit more saturated. Yeah, bit more lightness as well. Too light, probably. Yeah, too light. We can also change the hue if we want to. How about some nice blue grass? That's actually quite nice. So yeah, you can do basically whatever you want to with these values. As I said, this is changing colors is much more Sue's domain than mine. I'm just guessing a little bit what will work nicely. But color theory was never my favorite theory. Actually, I don't like adjust hue saturation too much. I often instead do an RGB matrix process because I find this dialogue much more logical. I understand this dialogue. I understand what it does. This dialogue, I don't really have a good grasp of those colors. But if I get to my RGB matrix and start with the Unity, I know that I can, for example, just add some green by going to 1.5 times green. Now I turned off the hue saturation, so this is going to drastically change. But there I can add green. We want to add a little bit of blue as well. Let's increase the blue by 1.1 and reduce the red component a little bit. And we get a nice green. Sue says radioactive grass. Yeah, I guess you're right. As I said, colors, good colors, not my thing. That's your department. But as you can see, we can use this to change the appearance and find out what I want. I mean, if I like red grass, I can just boost the red factor on this one. And we'll get this nice, maybe reduce the blue as well. And even a little less green. And we get closer to a nice red grass. Or we can remove most of the red components and just add a little bit more. So fixed green 0.3. Blah. So just go for whatever you really find nice. I don't think that was the best fitting grass actually, but you can play with this and find your own need. Yeah, I kind of like the dark grass actually. It's dark is kind of more my shade of colors, but if we go back to Sue's thread, you can see that she's using a much lighter grass, which has been accomplished same way. So it's all what you really want it to be. Okay, but I'm kind of happy with my maze now. I can of course start doing a little bit of things to it. I could, I can perhaps throw in a few more of these squared off corners. They don't look too nice. I want rounded corners. Yeah, so nice. Oh, yeah, I placed them at slightly less than normal scale. Let's go back to normal actually. But okay, it's fine. Placing these additional symbols at non-normal scale is fine, but trying to do that with connecting symbols simply doesn't work. Yeah, you can see what happens here if I try to go down to scale. And you can see they don't line up correctly when not scaled. This is why connecting symbols should always be done at scale 1. Okay, but let me have a little bit of fun with my maze. As you now can see at my maze here, I have a pathway. I can follow this and somehow get into the center of the maze. This was actually not into the center. I think it's the other way around. Yeah, follow here. And I find the center of my maze. But this maze is too easy, isn't it? And in a proper role-playing game, you can't just have a maze which they can just walk through. You need to prevent them, the players, that is, from walking through it. So I'm going to do something fun. I'm gonna add a little layer. And I'm gonna call this layer for the inner circle. And I'm going to actually now grab all the hedges that are in this inner circle. A little bit of work to select all of them correctly, because I don't want them, the ones outside. It shouldn't be that much work. This one, this one. Remember, you can hold down Control to deselect things. And if I hit refresh, then the purple selection rectangles get updated as well. So I think this looks fine. So I'm gonna do it and put that on my new inner circle. So why did I need to put these on the inner circles? Well, let's see what I can do about that. I'm going to place down something. Let's just drop something nice, like the golden bowl, which the big golden bowl, which guards the dungeon. We need a dungeon guardian. Now, if I've done everything correctly, I can go Tools, Macros, and I'm gonna make a hotspot. And I'm gonna put that hotspot on the bull's tail. But what should that hotspot do? What should happen when you click the hotspot? Well, that's quite simple. I'm gonna rotate something. And I'm actually going to rotate what I put on that inner circle layer. So I need to do a cell by L. Cell by L command means that I want to do my selection by layers instead of actually clicking with my mouse to select things. So I'm saying that, well, from now on, let me select by layers instead. So I'm going to rotate what is found on the inner circle layer. Whatever is found there should be rotated by, I think it's minus 30 degrees I want actually right now. And the last argument here is the center point. I don't know the center point, so I have to figure it out. I'm just gonna put 0.0 until I figure out the center point. So we're going to go back here and edit this before I use it. But just to make this macro a little bit more friendly, I do a cell save first. Cell save saves the current selection the user is using. And cell rest restores the selection method. Why do I do that? Because I changed the selection method here. So I want to keep whatever selection method they use, and I'm going to restore whatever they had. Sue asked in the chat if the center won't be 50-50. No, not exactly. 50-50 would be close, but I'm looking for the center of the maze and not the center of the map. And the center of the map maze is probably not exactly at 50-50. And that's why I'm looking at it. So I'm gonna have this macro. Okay, and I'm gonna place it on the bull's tail. Now we can hide the hotspots and lose that square afterwards. Let me look at this circle, and this is why I drew this circle in the first place, because I should be able to find the center, which is 50 point, zoom in a little bit so you can see this a little bit better. It's 50.38896 49.928. So that should be it. I'm just going to save this to clipboard because my memory is hopeless. Short-term memory is not my favorite thing. And I can also now copy it, and I can just grab this. I'm gonna do numeric edit on this one. I'm gonna replace those numbers with the actual center numbers, and I'm gonna do a redraw as well, just to force the drawing to be updated. You'll see why in a moment. Okay, saving the drawing. What happens if I click the bull's tail? Ding! The maze rotates. And if you look closely now, there are no ways to get into the center of the maze. Here's the center of the maze. It's closed here. You can go out a little bit, but see, there are walls. The center of the maze is completely closed off. If you come in here, you walk along the maze, correct way, you go here, all the way. This is the normal correct way. You get here, but instead of entering, you just find this place. And you know, you can actually move. You can move out, move on, and suddenly you find yourself back at the starting point. So if you do not open the maze, you do not know. Oh, so Mr. the Atrevian, it's a bush though, you say? Adventures have swords. Well, do you know what kind of plants I have at my disposal? You do not want to hack at those with a sword. Oh no, absolutely not. So I made it to rotate 30 degrees to close it. Let me just make an identical statue, and I want to be able to open it. So I'm actually making a different bull for opening it. Or maybe we should use the horns for opening it. We can use the horns. We can use the horns. I'm just going to copy the macro and make a new hotspot. Macros, make hotspots. This time I'm going to go 30 degrees the other direction. Okay. And let's put it on the head like that. And we can now hide hyperlinks and save. So if I click the horns, it's now open. You can now get to the center of the maze just fine. If you click the tail, you hide it again. And if you see that white flashing, that's why I added that redraw command at the end. Because Camp and Cartographer, for performance reasons, when you move things around, it just, instead of updating the screen all the time, which takes time, it just leaves a white rectangle behind, and that's fixed on the next redraw. But when I'm using a button like this, it's kind of nice to just have it happen automatically. We can see what happens if we don't do that. So hyperlinks, and I'm going to go in, and I'm going to remove the redraw on this one, and you can see the white is left behind. Doesn't really matter because I can redraw manually, but now I can just move it. Now, I didn't set any limits, so I can actually move it around as much as I want to. And you can see, this is why I chose this particular maze, because things lines up quite nicely, no matter how much I move them. Let's do redraw. You can see, moving these around gives us new options all the time. This one is open because I know you can get to here. This one is kind of open, but you have this large section here which is now shut off. Maybe you want the center to be open to your players, but you have this secret section in between. Again, as the Atrevian said, you can just chop through with swords. Well, but if the adventurers find the central part, they might not even try to chop through with swords. Hey, they found the center. What they don't know is there's a large chunk here with some hidden stuff. So this is just ways you can rotate this maze and have a nice little experience. Of course, as it was mentioned in chat, it depends a little bit how are you actually using this map. If you're using exported images, you might not actually need this function because you're not using it at the table. But then again, when I'm setting it up for creating those images, it's helpful for me to just have this macro. Maybe I'm just going to export it as two different images, but I still want to have this macro in the map, so when I'm going to export it, I can actually quickly switch back and forth to what I want. So that's kind of the secret in the map. Shall we decorate it a little bit more, make it a little bit prettier as well? See what we have here. Different things we can throw into the map. We could have a nice little statue in the middle, for example. Maybe even there are some benches in the middle. Ooh, Sue says we need monsters. Do you volunteer? Let's put down some benches. Place to sit. Just remember, if you place benches in the central section, it's going to rotate. So maybe the bench is not located in the best place when you do the rotation. But Sue requested monsters. Okay. Monsters there are. Let's see what we have. Do we have tentacles? Let me just hide the hyperlinks again. And let's see what we can put in there. Sheep. Nice. Nice, nasty monster. Giant sheep guarding the entrance. It's guarding this location. A little bit of sheep. And maybe we have a little bit of golem running around, guarding the place. Rats are always nice. Who does not love rats? Maybe we can have a little rat's nest in here. Some giant rats. Pretty large giant rat. Yeah, okay, it's not that. We can have a little bit of a rat's nest inside here. We love rats. So, if they move the dungeon, maybe they open this section and get access to the rats. Sounds fun enough. I have some ants as well, guarding the entrance. And of course, if we want more monsters, I happen to know that there is a certain woman in the chat who has made some more monsters. How about we go to Creepy Crypts, for example? Creatures. Spiders. We love spiders. And of course, maybe this spider is so big, it's actually walking on top of the hedges. Ooh. That's quite nice. Imagine that. You come there walking into this nice, quiet, pretty little garden maze, and you just look up and you see a giant spider standing on the top of the hedges, just looking down at you. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. But I actually think, since this is a garden, I want a little bit more gardening stuff. Some trees. So I got a question, why shadows in the program and shadows in the exported map vary sometimes greatly in size. Shadows shouldn't normally vary in size, but it depends on how you have defined your effects, because if I go into the effects dialog and I go and check on the walls, the shadows here are set in map units. But if I, for example, set the shadows to % of view width instead, it means they are calculated based on my current view width. And when I export the map, the view width as it's seen from the export is very, very different than the view you would see in the program. So this is a common reason why shadows have different length. It sets to % of view width instead of map units. Only a few effects should ever use these settings. Everything else should always use either map units or percentage of drawing extends width, which is the entire drawing, and should also be fixed between on-screen and export. So yes, so let me throw in a little bit more, some bushes perhaps. Hide a little bit of this edges of our maze. Maybe there actually grows a tree in the middle of the maze. Yeah, a tree in the middle of the maze is fine. Depends so much how visibility on the map. A tree like that blocks a little bit, so it can be more difficult to play with the map. Just throw down a little bit of ferns. Ooh, a fern patch. Let's throw in a fern patch. Right there. Actually, the fern patch probably shouldn't go above. Let's see. We do have... I don't have a symbols low, but it shouldn't be any shadows from a fern patch anyway, so I'm gonna put it on the symbols flat sheet. So Bill asks, what happens with the monster when the inner maze rotates? Well, I haven't put them on the special layer. So what happens right now is that they stay absolutely put. And you see the result there. I could, of course, if I had added them to the layer, they would have rotated with the maze. But as I did notice a little bit when I placed the benches, I commented that you should be careful how you place the benches, because as you move this around, the location of the benches might seem silly. So I recommend just going through and figuring out how things are arranged, just to see if it's possible or not to actually move the maze, and just place the symbols where they fit. So they don't, and by where they fit I mean so they don't get in the way of the rotating maze. But you could of course add them to the layer I have rotated, or you could have a macro a separate macro that does something with them as well. Let's put some fungi. Always nice with some fungi as well. And I'm thinking we're getting a little maze map. I'm not quite 100% sold on the colors I've made here, but as I said, colors are more Sue's domain. I'm using probably 10 times as long as she does to get nice colors. And she knows, she has a better control of the whole hue saturation lightness thing. One more trees, a little bit more trees perhaps, and some bushes. You'll notice that this map does not have a screen. You can see the symbols start poking out, so let's just add a screen. So I'm just gonna run the color auto command, and it should automatically add a screen for me. Actually want the map border to show above the screen, so we're gonna move the map border down there. And what happened now is that a white polygon was created outside the map that basically cloaks everything that hides outside the map. It's nothing more special than that. And I see that we have just about hit the hour, so I think this is as good a place as any to just stop. So I just want to thank Sue for the brilliant free symbols. The connecting hedges are great, not just for creating hedge mazes like this, but for creating all kind of hedges in all kind of different things. So if there are any final questions, just throw them into the chat. If not, we'll just call it a night here, and thanks to all of you for viewing. So I hope to see you in later live streams, or maybe in the forums. So I guess it's just have a nice evening, and be seeing you.